Jeffrey Epstein's biggest failure was that he died before he could have just done a right-wing pivot.
But now we have emails of a different side of the scheme. It says, yesterday I spoke to Daniel Syed, who Jean-Luc Brunel describes as a scout or recruiter of girls or women for Jeffrey Epstein. It shows Jeffrey Epstein paying Daniel 3,000 euros, which, to be clear, was the amount that was agreed to by Jean-Luc Brunel. Quote, Dominique, we will pay him 3,000 euros each month for scouting for a 6-month period. On all models we will get him, we will pay him 5% commission on their earnings. According to one lawsuit, Epstein trafficked a Jane Doe to Jean-Luc Brunel many times. It describes their operation as this. Many of the girls came from poor countries or impoverished backgrounds. He lured them in with a promise of making good money. Quote, Brunel has been a model scout for various modeling agencies for many years, and he was apparently able to get U.S. passports for young girls to work as models, eventually, of course, being sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it should be noted that Jean-Luc Brunel himself died in prison by hanging, and that's while he was being accused of horrible crimes related to trafficking and minors. So this guy is not a good guy. He was part of the op along with Daniel Syed.
Maybe that's why Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, because he got sad because his best friend also killed himself under very similar circumstances. Have you ever thought about that? No, I guess not.
Here's a sample of how this would work. Jeffrey Epstein asked him to take a full body shot of someone. Daniel Syed says, now she is really skinny, I will do Polaroid. Jeffrey Epstein asks for a copy of her passport and then asks, how many tickets do you want for Woody, meaning Woody Allen? He says 2. Okay, thank you. Full body if possible. And then Jeffrey Epstein says, doesn't look too happy. Comments on her body, and then he says she is very sweet. I'll skip a few of the sordid details here. They comment about her body extensively, and then Jeffrey Epstein says, I sent a request. Does she want to come out to Paris on Sunday? He says, I will invite to come. And this is basically how it worked. Daniel Syed flew around the world looking for women, sending photos to Jeffrey Epstein, who then would get a copy of their passports and bring him to the States. Here's an example of this. Daniel Syed brings him a girl. They didn't redact this name, but I'm going to do it. He says, very nice, easygoing, dream to work in United States or visit the United States working as a model in Dubai. He asks age. Daniel says 22 or 23. I forgot to ask her. She looks younger. I have her number if you want to call her. She was going to send this evening. And this happens over and over. At one point, he talks about a Thai actress. Jeffrey Epstein says he can see her on Wednesday, and then he complains that she...
It's pretty wild that so many people try to keep up the facade that Jeffrey Epstein was, you know, either like a sex criminal in his own might and had nothing to do with the you know, client list or the social elite that he was consistently surrounding himself with. Or even my favorite take, and I did not know this, but there's a Destiny take out there who is, you know, because he's consistently wrong. He's on the wrong side of every argument for some goddamn reason. He also apparently talked about the Epstein stuff back in the day on the Iced Coffee podcast, where he quite literally said, oh, it's whatever. It's just like a rub and tug. Like Jeffrey Epstein was like maybe getting rub and tugs for his friends, and it's not that big of a deal. Overwhelming majority are of age. Some might have been like a little bit underage, and it's not the end of the world. Like something along those lines, which is insane.
To meet in a restaurant, I don't do that in New York, and then says she didn't even respond. Not nice. The point is, a lot of these girls were looking to come to the United States for one reason or another, for some kind of dream. They would ask for passports or visas, and then ultimately get sent here by this network of people who would later be accused of trafficking or other abuses. Now, to be clear, there have not been charges against Daniel Syed, and the government, remember, says they have no evidence to go even predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So it's a little bit bizarre to be reading about this scouting operation for Jeffrey Epstein, the way he recruited girls, and then be told, yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah, one of the scouts was like this, like, who in jail, but no, there's no one else here, even though there's definitely guys floating around, even though we literally have redacted defendants in our old draft of an indictment. We have nothing to do. We can't possibly imagine.
No co-conspirators. Come on, stop. Don't look into that. Todd Blanche said it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein when it quite literally is. Oh, this is the old Matt Iglesias. Actually, it's a Phoebophilia defense. Do you take on Epstein on Iced Coffee Hour?
I want to know about Jeffrey Epstein.
What about him? What a disappointment. My God.
You have all the answers, right? To Jeffrey Epstein?
Here's what happened. Here's what people wanted there to be. People think that there are a bunch of politicians and billionaires that are raping kids all day long, and they love that theory. It's just such a fun, awesome theory. Hillary Clinton was involved in it. Bill Clinton was involved in it. Prince Andrew, all the billionaires, they're all of them. Okay, and then when a story like this comes out, yes, you finally, okay, QAnon, the pizza shop, everything is coming together. Okay, this is it. The child billionaire politician sex rape ring, finally. And I think what probably actually happened was you had a billionaire guy like Epstein, who was a pervert, who paid off a ton of girls, not even the majority of them, a minority of them were underage, to come over, give him massages, maybe give his friends massages, and sometimes jerk him off. But the vast majority of it was probably legal. The majority of it probably weren't minors. There were a few that were. I think 2 confirmed, only 2. And he just, like, sometimes he would, like, send girls to go and, like, rub and tug his friends or whatever, and that's it.
Do you think that any of it could have been for blackmail?
No. Absolutely.
How is this man? First of all, only 2 child rapes or whatever is a crazy argument. Just a little bit of child rape on the side, only 2. Great argument, okay? But overall, it is quite remarkable how he is so consistently on the wrong side. Like, he is notoriously wrong. I don't understand it. I don't know what it is. Is it the contrarian brain or whatever? I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's because he's like constantly presenting himself as like in opposition to whatever I'm presenting, and then he, unfortunately for him, ends up running into this issue because I happen to be right, and then he, by definition, happens to be wrong. It's just pretty funny. This is from a couple of years prior, by the way. I just saw a clip of this.
I won't say absolutely not, but right now there is 0 evidence whatsoever of that at all. And the idea
This is bullshit. I wonder if his position has evolved since then, but it's just very, very interesting.
But the work was done so sloppy that oftentimes you'll find that the DOJ has uploaded 2 documents that are functionally identical, and they redacted one but not the other, letting you see what's ultimately behind the mask, which is dumb because sometimes the thing they're redacting is Jeffrey Epstein's name. Or other times it's somebody who clearly is not a victim, because then you see the non-redacted copy and you're like, yeah, that's clearly not a victim. So it's a little strange what they seem to have done here. Let me give you a for instance. So we have this message from somebody whose name is blacked out, and we see participants, and then we see Jeffrey Epstein is involved, right? And it says, we need to work around your 38. We need to push back on the lies, then crush the pedo trafficking narrative, then rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Now, I want to know who's doing that. Who's trying to rebuild Jeffrey Epstein's image?
Steve Bannon, even in certain instances, might have even Noam Chomsky as well, who said something similar to that. Maybe not under those certain terms, but something along those lines. It was pretty devastating to see and read that. Alan Dershowitz is another one. I mean, there are so many. Jeffrey Epstein was surrounded by people who are fairly aware of his sex crimes and were totally on board with it and took it to lengths that you wouldn't believe. They wanted to defend it. They normalized, justified, and defended it. And yeah, just a monstrous group of individuals.
We go ahead, we scroll down, and we see that Jeffrey Epstein sends something. He says, in any bar where drinking age is 18, and you see the participant is once again blacked out. But underneath it, in a separate file, we see Steve Bannon, a famous political figure, is in here, and he's saying the same thing. He says, first, we need to push back on the lies, then crush the trafficking narrative, then rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Guys, why did you censor out his name? Or like, why was that censored at all? I don't understand. And I certainly don't understand why Jeffrey Epstein's name in this one is censored. So Jeffrey's not censored in this one, but Bannon is. And then
you see, you don't understand. He's a victim. That's what it is. How are they so incompetent, bro? They literally did not redact some of the victims' names. I cannot believe it. It is unbelievable. They did not redact some of the victims' names, and then they ended up redacting, once again, the names of Steve Bannon and numerous other people who are very clearly co-conspirators. It's just, half of it is fuck-ups, half of it must be by design. I do think that, like, the lack of redactions for some of the victims is almost to, like, punish the victims, I assume. I don't know. It's just, it don't make no sense.
We have things like this, like Brock Pierce, a co-founder of Tether, also known as the biggest stable coin in the world. He sent a message to Jeffrey Epstein with the subject line, Anastasia, And then it's just a bunch of redacted stuff with a few untitled JPEGs in here. And so, you know, you're thinking to yourself, what is this? Is he sending some illicit media? Like, what is this? Well, then we have this page where it wasn't redacted. I put that little dark square that I didn't know if this should have been redacted or not. It's like a bunch of JPEGs. Now, does that contain victims? Is Brock Pierce sending photos of victims? I don't know because of the way the government did this. But underneath, it says, the Ukraine is now my favorite country, smiley face, Brock Pierce, with the subject line, Anastasia. I don't know what to make of that. I'm just saying, the redactions, like the way they did this is not good. But now let's...
We've brought this up already, but it is truly remarkable that, like, at least in European countries, the people that are involved with Jeffrey Epstein in any capacity are actually unironically getting punished right now. Maybe not the super wealthy, but at least like the politicians are. And you know for a fact that not a single American politician can be touched. Not a single.
Turn to Steve Bannon and his "we're gonna crush the trafficking" narrative. Because this guy, oh boy, has been revealed in the files to being like Jeffrey's right-hand PR man. I mean, this guy was filming basically a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein in order to rehabilitate his image. And some of it has actually leaked to the public. It's been interesting to watch how that's been received. But the funny thing is that originally Jeffrey Epstein's plan was to just do a YouTube video, like an apology, like a old school 2016, turn on the camera for authenticity.
Yeah, that'll do it. Totally. Bust out the ukulele, baby. F it. Let's be real, dude. If Jeffrey Epstein didn't die when he did, and if he just held out for a little bit longer, he could have become a legend in the right. I mean, post-mortem, there is this legendary status that he is arriving at for some weird fucking reason amongst the pedophilic neo-Nazi right now.
Not ready for that conversation, but Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile, but you're not ready for that conversation. All of his victims, 14 to 17. That's not pedophilia. But y'all ain't ready for that conversation.
But if he was alive right now and he was like, I hate woke, I hate the wokes, I'm Mr. Anti-Woke, he 100% would have his image rehabilitated, and people would talk about how based he is. People would be talking about how awesome he is and how it's dope to do sex crimes to children. Jeffrey Epstein's biggest failure was that he died before he could have just done a right-wing pivot. Straight up. I mean, look at Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is like small fry Jeffrey Epstein.
I can do my own video interview and upload it to YouTube. No sandbagging, interview format, or like a diary piece. Steve Bannon says if you do an interview, it can't be like Johnny does a YouTube. It has to be amazingly professional and perfectly cut. Then Jeffrey Epstein responds, Woody, we assume Woody Allen, because they were close, said he would help edit. Not sure how to stage, what points to make. But better than trying to do an interview that I have no experience doing. Goal is to humanize the monster. Anything written carries little weight, to which Steve Bannon replies, yes, Jeffrey Epstein. Should it be an interview format, interviewed by me? They start talking about, like, how do we do this? Humor, apology, how did I get rich? Question mark, topics. They're brainstorming. How do we trick the public into seeing me as...
He would definitely go on Rogan. Brother, Jeffrey Epstein has spiritually gone on Rogan because piece by piece, the amount of people his dick has been inside of that have gone on Joe Rogan has basically made it so that Jeffrey Epstein has been on Joe Rogan himself. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk, so many other billionaires and you know, adjacent characters. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he even had a shorter relationship with Mark Zuckerberg, but he was apparently around Mark Zuckerberg as well. Considering that, I mean, dude, I feel like the Joe Rogan experience is basically a network where Joe goes and finds Joe goes and finds Epstein's besties to bring onto the show. Yeah, Lawrence Krauss, Steven Pinker, Elon Musk, Peter Attia, Peter Thiel, Donald Trump. This doesn't even scratch the surface. Virtually every single person.
Right before this, Jeffrey Epstein asks about a dinner with Woody, and then he says, or too many pedos in one place. And you gotta love the self-awareness there. Now, I don't know what he meant by that. To be clear, I'm not making that accusation against Woody Allen. We'll talk about him in a second. That's Jeffrey Epstein saying that. I think what's interesting to point out, though, is how all these rich and powerful people are circling the wagons to try to protect Jeffrey Epstein's reputation, right? This is a guy who at this point has been known for years to have pled guilty to these 2008 charges. This was an open secret. And so Steve Bannon goes along though anyways, and he films this documentary. Now what's interesting is he starts talking about the documentary and he starts saying, I'm watching our second hour now. Guys were blown away. I didn't think it was as strong at the time, but I was wrong. Need huge part about threat of AI versus reality, threat of climate change. And this is where the notes start going back and forth of how can we get you to think of other things? So part of the conceit of this big interview of Jeffrey Epstein was to try to humanize him and actually present him as this genius, everyman, quirky guy with a...
Yeah, this was the express purpose of Steve Bannon's quote-unquote deposition, which he changed after the fact, post-mortem. It was to gear him up and do PR for Jeffrey Epstein when they knew that the international sex trafficker stuff was coming back to light.
Few flaws, right? They knew they couldn't run away from the crimes. To quote, in Bannon's words, yes, 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 of course, but we must counter rapists who traffics in female children to be raped by world's most powerful, richest men. That can't be redeemed. Can't redeem the unredeemable. You are a lot of things which we will show, but you are not that. Bannon is aware that like they can't fully embrace the Epstein thing. They have to kind of make it about more than that. And if you see the YouTube clip going around, that's what that is. And it's been so interesting to watch the reaction because you see, even for people who've been prepped with the idea that this is basically propaganda, some of them still fall for it. They post things like, oh, cat.
Yes. Talking about the Rockefellers over and over again. I listened to the interview. I listened to big parts of the interview this morning. And people are picking apart bits and pieces of it, but it is, you know how I say money has never been more fake than it is at this point in time? Humans have never been more cattle than at this point in time. I swear to God, a medieval peasant is less cattle than the average American person. We are maxed out on being cattle.
Casually confirming the world's conspiracies because he's talking about 2008. But guys, that's the whole deception. They're like trying to be like, hey, this guy, this horrible monster, he's going to tell you the secrets of the inside club. So you think more, that's the whole thing. That's how they're getting away with this. It's not some kind of, oh, he happened to want to talk about this. This is all premeditated. This has gone through revisions. They even called Jeffrey Epstein the smartest guy in the room.
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know that.
It's honestly ridiculous anyone believes the false conceit of, you're obviously the smartest man in the room. You could tell.
Jeffrey Epstein, and I say this sincerely, is not the smartest guy in any room. There are points in this interview where he is so up his own asshole that he says, unironically, yeah, you know what? Plato and Socrates never actually wrote. Writing is actually bad. It's bad for your brain. It causes you to narrow your focus. He said that because he's illiterate and he's coping. He's an exceptionally dumb person.
But it wasn't just Steve Bannon that was trying to humanize or giving advice on how to humanize Epstein. It was also Richard Branson, the famous billionaire. He was caught emailing Jeffrey Epstein saying, "Dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you are in the area, would love to see you as long as you bring your harem." I don't know, that's not that ambiguous, guys. I think we can imagine what that means, but anyway.
God damn. I mean, that's expected, but it's so funny that it's like, God damn, dude.
He says, one, I think if Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old and were punished for it, that you've more than learned your lesson and have done nothing that's against the law since. And yes, as a single man, you have a penchant for women, but there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, something along those lines. He's giving him PR advice. How to get your reputation back. Hey, Jeffrey, privately, I loved you. You can come back anytime with your harem. Jeffrey Epstein responds, nice seeing you. Thanks for your hospitality. I appreciate your public relations thoughts. But now let's talk about Prince Andrew, too, who was caught lying over a woman at some kind of a party. I mean, just not a good, this is not doing you any favors, you know. I know Prince Andrew soon will probably be on the comeback tour. It's going to be a bunch of highly paid PR execs. Maybe Steve Bannon can jump in, shoot another 5-hour podcast trying to rehabilitate him. Like, Prince Andrew, what's the secret behind the royal family?
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room.
But again, has he admitted anything? Has he denied?
Okay, I'm going to admit something. In a room where Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew are together, that's the one room where Jeffrey Epstein is the smartest guy in the room. I take it back. We found a room. If there's one guy who's just as pedophilic, but even dumber than Jeffrey Epstein, it's Prince Andrew.
Everything. Now, we should also probably talk about Noam Chomsky as well, the guy behind the book Manufacturing Consent, which in hindsight, maybe we should have suspected something. But either way, he also...
No. Look. I need everyone to take a deep breath here, okay? Because I've been seeing some people that I have a lot of respect for say crazy stuff on the timeline. I'm not going to name names, but I've seen people say crazy shit on the timeline. First of all, there's the Parenti-Chomsky rivalry, right? The MLs who hate Chomsky, who are like, I told you so, pure vindication. You guys are ridiculous. Okay, calm down. Then there's also the other side of the story where people are kind of defending old Noam, saying like, I forgive him, things like that, which is even wilder because no, this is like unforgivable. Having said that, I think his work still stands on its own. And it's a totally separate construct from who he is as a person or who he became as a person later on in his life or who he might have been all along. And I say this as someone who obviously has criticism of Noam Chomsky, but someone who also has a lot of respect for his work as well. Noam is your Kanye? No. There is no, I will never, under no circumstance will I ever fucking defend this shit. Are you insane? Like guys, one of the worst aspects of this, aside from the fact that he had a deep embedded relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, was that he also had a deep relationship with Steve Bannon, seemingly, which was insane. And not only that, but when people asked him, back when he was capable of responding to every email that he got, he defended it. It's irredeemable through and through. I'm just saying it doesn't touch like some of his earlier work. It doesn't, like, if you're making a post hoc justification for why it sucks, then you're wrong. If you have an issue with the way you interpret like Manufacturing Consent or, Profit Over People, all these other books that he's written, and that's one thing. But if you're saying like, oh, well, he's a pedophile, so all of his previous work is like completely irrelevant, well, then no, you're wrong on that. Not defending Chomsky, but did you know that Epstein was a pedophile creep? You are literally looking at correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and Noam Chomsky right now, where Noam Chomsky is offering lines of defense to Jeffrey Epstein about the pedophilia. Yes, he knew. Okay, yes, he knew. He knew. He knew. Come on. This is in the year 2019 of our holy Lord, February 23rd, 2019. This is when like the relitigation was taking place. Come on.
But now it's time to talk about Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk. He was also in the files.
If you've been in here, for years, you've already heard me talk about Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother. Every time Elon Musk talked about Jeffrey Epstein, I said, hey, fun fact, or maybe not so fun fact, but Kimball Musk is deeply connected to Jeffrey Epstein because he was dating one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and the truth will eventually prevail. Well, now we have more evidence for it. There you go. God knows why Elon was running his mouth when he was this connected, though. I didn't know he was this directly connected.
Around the world, we're seeing resignations. We're seeing people lose their status. But here in the United States, we've got like multiple presidents in the files. We've got the world's richest man in the files, several of the world's richest men in the files, and we just can't drum up any kind of evidence. It's just incredible to me. Now, I also want to talk about another rich and powerful person, and that is Peter Attia. He's a podcast bro. He's a longevity expert. And actually, funny enough, I read his book, and that's going to come into play here in a second. But let's start here with something that Peter Attia sent Jeffrey Epstein. He says, subject, got a fresh shipment. And then Epstein responds, me too. And there's a completely redacted image. Peter says, please tell me you found that picture online. Jeffrey responds, got a fresh shipment, afraid not. Peter responds, you know the biggest problem with becoming friends with you. The life you lead is so outrageous, yet I can't tell a soul. Why, Peter? Why can't you tell a soul? Why don't you tell us now? Now that it's all out in the open, why don't you tell us why you can't tell a soul the secrets or the life that Epstein leads? And then we get another redacted photo, right? And then some more images, and Peter says, please tell me that's not where you actually are. And Jeffrey says, you can see the gym in the middle, just me and 4. And Peter says, I think you might have a more interesting life than the Dos Equis guy. Is this off the coast of France? No, it's my
The Dos Equis guy. To add insult to injury, these guys are also ginormous goobers, bro. I know that's not the main point here, but they're unimaginable fucking goobers. They're whole ass losers, man.
island in the Caribbean near St. Thomas. If you go to the Google Earth and type in Little St. James. Beautiful. Isn't that nice? Behind closed doors, it's beautiful. In public, we'll hear about what a monster this guy is, right? But behind closed doors, when nobody's watching, oh, it's beautiful. There's some other stuff Peter Attia said, which I'm not going to get into. I don't think it's very, appropriate for medical professionals to be saying such things. But
he talks about eating pussy and how many calories it is, right?
this wasn't all business, right? This wasn't just doctor-patient kind of stuff. There's a lot of guy talk, a lot of banter. Peter Attia says, are you on island? Jeffrey Epstein says, P Beach, probably Palm Beach. And he says, what do you do when you get there? Jeffrey Epstein, guess. Peter Attia, besides that, they're not even trying to hide it, guys. This is barely code at this point.
It's never
what do
code.
you do? Guess. Well, besides that, Jeffrey, we know what you do, right? So it's so funny that the FBI's like, we don't know. We can't tell what's out there. We have no evidence. Remember I said I read a book by Peter Attia. It was called Outlive, and he's supposed to be this doctor who knows a lot about longevity. So he writes it, and I picked it up. And one of the stories is awful. I won't go too much into it, but basically, his son has this horrible medical emergency. It's described in this book like this. A few months ago, Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, that date is important. At 5:45 to be exact, I received a call from Jill, my wife. She was in an ambulance with our infant son. Now, again, I'm not gonna get into the details here because, it's tragic, and I'm not trying to bring that into it. What is relevant is that Peter Attia talks about how he stayed in New York and didn't show up because he was, quote, busy with his important work. Even today, just thinking about what happened, I feel nauseous about my behavior. I can't believe I did that to
Oh my God,
family.
was he on the fucking island? Oh my God, does the timeline match him visiting the island? Oh my God, I didn't know this part. Oh,
Now, at the time, I read that, and I was like, well, it's at least as good that you self-reflected on that. It's horrible, but, yeah, you were a bit of a psycho. But what's crazy, now we find out some of the important work, it's a little unclear, but some of the important work may have been Jeffrey Epstein, which is just, it's so dark to imagine. Remember, he says July 11th, 2017 is when this all happened. And then he says he did not come home to San Diego until Friday the following week, 10 days later. So July 11th, 2017, 2 days after this happens, he's talking to Jeffrey Epstein. And they seem to be coordinating about something. Sure, what time? Jeffrey Epstein, 9:30. Peter Attia responds, sure, I can come earlier. Also, if you have a hard stop at 10, let me know. You're hanging out with Jeffrey? I don't even know what to say. There's a reason that didn't make it in the book, is what I'm trying to say. That's the simping that I'm talking about, is these people love this guy. Or that's how it seems to me. Like, what are all these rich and powerful people doing, protecting him, missing emergencies for Jeffrey, fawning over Jeffrey, asking for Jeffrey's harem? And is it true they all didn't know, right? Because, I'm reading these documents, and it's hard to say who exactly knew what, when, but I don't believe, remember, they're all denying it, I don't believe nobody.
I want to point something out here, but Attia is a Barry Weiss acolyte. And Barry Weiss, when this data dump came out and people were like, wait a minute, isn't he one of the new podcasters that you hired for CBS? Barry Weiss was defending keeping him on and straight up said, oh, it's just cancel culture nonsense to not go along with the hiring process for this wonderful individual that must remain at CBS News. I love Barry Weiss so much because she makes my job so easy. She's just consistently wrong. She's bad at her job. You couldn't wish for a better pro-Israel advocate. I don't want Israel to have competent propagandists. I want Israel to have Barry Weiss.
Right? Clearly, some people knew what was going on, and there's all this kind of coded language in the files where they talk about this stuff almost in like a nudge kind of way. Here's some Woody Allen stuff. He was in the files. He says his business office, if you can make out the check to me, it looks very
Woody
bad.
Allen. No, not Woody. Wow, that's surprising.
Then it looks like a gift to me. He says that to Epstein. He says, I don't want to be one of your women, or should I say, girls. And what's that? Oh, how do we, come on, guys. Woody says, I would be much more.
Bro, there's literally an email between Jeffrey Epstein and Woody Allen where they're both like, yeah, we're pedophiles. Isn't that crazy? Like they jokingly go, oh yeah, can't wait to go to the pedophilia conference in France. And then the other one's like, yeah, because we're pedophiles who love having sex with children, pretty much. I'm paraphrasing. And then you still got motherfuckers being like, oh dude, what kind of code words are they using? Are they using pizza? No, man, the code word is pedophilia and raping children. There's no code word. They just say it out loud.
More expensive than your girls. You wouldn't be able to afford me. Jeffrey responds, yes, the price to pay would be too high. Woody says, this will be a beautiful friendship. And then Jeffrey says, as long as I follow orders, smiley face. Woody Allen sends a message saying Woody says the exact same thing, but in a dirtier way. Jeffrey responds, what did he say? Woody Allen, are you kidding? I can't put it in writing. I mean, no evidence, no evidence. How? I mean, guys, like Jeffrey Epstein right here, where he's talking to a guy, he says, Paris with Woody, and the person responds, for le pedophile convention. And Jeffrey says, I think pedophile is the plural. I mean, no evidence. I mean, is that no evidence?
Motherfuckers be in their emails being like, there's nothing I enjoy as much as nubile flesh. I love consuming it. And then people still turn around and they're like, wait a minute, did they bring up cheese pizza at any point? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that when they're talking about cheese pizza, it's most likely f***ing cheese pizza, big dog. Because when they're talking about children, they just say children.
Look, I'm not saying
Barry Weiss's wife
people
is in
around the
there
world are
too.
having crazy consequences, but a few people are resigning, thank goodness. You know, a few people are at least facing a little bit of scrutiny, but here Elon Musk lays out the...
I think outside of Palestine, this was probably the other thing that I've consistently talked about nonstop, even though people looked at me kind of weird. And I guess they like kind of changed their tune after the Jeffrey Epstein suicide, quote unquote suicide, where people were like, okay, maybe there's more to this story. This and like the anti-Zionism have been two of my major points of advocacy throughout the years. It's been an incredible moment of vindication, even though, you know, it's the events are horrifying. OG HasanAbi has I once did an 8-hour Jeffrey Epstein analysis, and it was so long that YouTube completely blacklisted my channel, and I had to delete it. With Matt Chrisman, with Brace Belden of TrueAnon. Yeah, isn't that crazy? There's 5 hours of Jeffrey Epstein coverage you never asked for. Oh, this is it. It was initially 7 hours, cut down to 5 hours. Then there was also this. So we're all in agreement that we think someone's going to kill Epstein before he gives up names, right? Any prison that doesn't put Epstein under 24/7 surveillance and solitary confinement right now is also responsible for him getting assassinated. I wrote that on my birthday, July 25th, 2019. Yeah, y'all think I'm pre-watch Piker y'all think pre-watch Piker is a new thing, okay? It's been around. It's been around for so long, motherfuckers think I did it when shit pops off.
We deny everything.
Subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service to get tomorrow's news today. That's right. For a voluntary subscription of only $6 a month, you can support the show. That's the only way to support the show. You can also subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service, now available on YouTube with a membership. That's right. We haven't figured out what the membership rewards are going to look like for YouTube, but you can subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service both on YouTube and also on Twitch. Tomorrow's news today.
But you should just assume everyone that we are talking about firmly denies any kind of criminal wrongdoing. They deny anything untowards about any kind of minors. And given the fact that our government doesn't seem to want to investigate anyone, I would just assume everybody here is completely clear. And so I want to get all those caveats in here because we are talking about some very powerful people with enormous means. And I don't want to be seen as I'm saying stuff. I'm reading the files. I'm giving my personal opinion. But ultimately, this is an indictment of our FBI and the people in power. And that's what I think the Epstein files have really shown us. This has been a long road. Can you believe it all started over here? And we have come all this way with all these files coming out. And it seems like the question is on the table. Are there going to be consequences?
Is there any chance that any of these individuals
Do you see the 4chan post that was posted before Epstein's death that was publicly revealed, confirmed to be posted by a guard in his unit? Yes, I have. I remember it at the time. I remember all the conspiracies at the time. I think this is a crazy one.
Some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak.
Guys, nothing to see here. Deputy Attorney General, former defense attorney for Donald Trump, Todd Blanche, said, nothing to see here. It's not a crime to party. All right.